Good evening, I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining me for this APTN special where we are putting this hot new show, First Contact, in focus. Before we get going and introduce you to your guests, I want to show you a little bit of what you've been missing if you haven't been watching.
I think of alcoholism, I think of drug abuse,
a whole bunch of partying and flop houses.
They just always get money and handouts.
How are they the worst off when they're given so much?
We are being made to pay for something that we didn't do.
Where's my money going?
They don't paint their houses, they don't fix windows.
Welfare's not a career.
They're angry at white people.
I mean, they want you to feel sorry for them.
Get off your ass if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Feels like it's just a lost cause at this point.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to my community so that you can see with your own eyes, experience with your own bodies, and feel with your own hearts what this community is really about.
This could be not so bad, it could be good, or it could be like, holy, what did I just sign up for?
I have not been to a reservation ever.
We are going to stick out like sore thumbs.
It's our way of life, and we just try and maintain it as best we can.
If I was to stay at one of those homes, I would find a place to go and take a shower first thing in the morning.
Welcome to Winnipeg's North End.
It is very scary. For one, I'm the minority here.
We're really looking at the long-term effects of the genocide.
There's lots of things that happen in the world. We've got to look ahead.
I'm just having a very hard time understanding.
That's not an excuse. You're a prime example of society.
I just want this day to be over with. This is camping for them. For me, it's like hell on earth.
We're not going anywhere. We've always been here. But how can we reconcile? How can we stand together?
Thanks for coming to my community.
I had no idea. It really puts a dark stain on the Canada that I thought I knew.
I came here with ignorant views, and you know what? I was wrong.
I've never felt so foreign in my own country.
Just having you here is a good thing.
A lot of our stories are similar.
You know, I don't say walk a mile in my shoes and understand. And we'll get there. We'll just say one heart at a time.
So you can see why this was a highly anticipated, first of its kind in Canada. And joining me now are three people who took these participants on their journeys. I'll start first with Michael Champagne. He's one of the show's hosts and raised in Winnipeg's North End. He's an award-winning public speaker, community organizer, and a proud member of Shamattawa Cree Nation. Next to him, we have James Fable. He's the leader of the Bear Clan Patrol, whose volunteers serve and protect Winnipeg's high-crime areas. He took some of the First Contact participants on one of these patrols to show them the challenges facing impoverished people in Winnipeg's notorious North End. And we have Bernadette Smith. Her sister, Claudette Osborne, has been missing since 2008, one of thousands of Indigenous women who have gone missing or been found murdered in this country. Bernadette took the group of participants out on a Drag the Red mission on Winnipeg's Red River, a volunteer-run group that literally scours the Red River looking for bodies of missing and murdered people in Winnipeg. She's also a member of the Manitoba Legislative Assembly. I thank all of you for joining me here today. So first off, I'd like to hear from each of you. When you were approached to be part of this show, what made you say yes? Start with you.
Well, when I was first approached with the concept and the possibility of participating, my initial reaction was hesitation. It wasn't an immediate yes. One of the things that I think all of us work really hard for is to break stereotypes and address a lot of those negative perspectives that permeate across Canada about Indigenous people. And I think, at least I know for me, I was quite nervous that this show could potentially inflame those racial tensions as opposed to solving them.
Yeah.
So I was nervous.
Were you surprised that a show like this was even going to be done?
At the same time as being nervous and being surprised, I was also hopeful. because I feel like if we don't shine a light on the things that we don't know, we can never get better. And so I really appreciated the intention of this show. What I'm really going to be looking for, though, is the impact that it has and the actions that people take as a result.
Right. James, when you were approached to be part of this show, what did you think of the concept, and what made you say you would do it?
I've been really focused on the last couple of years trying to get a positive message out of the community, and I view this as a real solid opportunity to do that, change the perspectives of some people with misconceptions about our community and our community members.
I like it. Bernadette, you heard about the concept, and what made you say, count me in?
I was absolutely in. As an educator, I believe that we change mindsets, we change perspectives, and we change attitudes by actually educating people. So this was a chance to take some people who had misconceptions, that had those stereotypical images of what Indigenous people look like and how they lived and treated one another. Mm-hmm. So when they came on our boat, it was really enlightening. I feel like people left with a different attitude, and
you educated them.
Absolutely.
So the educator says these people need education, and I'm going to do it to educate them.
Yeah, and this was an opportunity to do just that.
Okay, well, let's jump back to the beginning of the series when Michael meets the participants and asks this question.
So I'm curious to know, what experiences have you folks had with Indigenous people in Canada?
Oftentimes you see them inebriated, or you see them passed out on the street.
I feel like people are kind of wondering why they're given all this money, free housing or education or programs like that. They're not doing anything with it.
Don't come to me bragging about what you can get free from the government when I can't get it.
So, Michael, you hear this. I want to know what you were thinking. These are people invited into your backyard. They're talking about your people as you're standing there listening to this. And even listening now, your face now tells me a lot. What were you thinking at the time as you're hearing this?
I just wanted to scream. I just wanted to scream and yell and say, absolutely not. I don't know who you've been talking to, but we need to go for a walk together. I need to introduce you to some people, because clearly you guys have never seen the generosity, love, and kindness that is present within my community. And for people to hold those types of views and to, right to my face, be saying those horrific, negative, stereotypical things was, one, triggering based on my own negative experiences in my life and of other young people I've worked with, and two, it made me feel very helpless, because as they were speaking those words, I knew that they weren't the only ones. And so as they say those things, I'm like, all right, as uncomfortable and as much as this makes me upset, it needs to be said so it can be addressed.
Yeah. You guys were the first people to, they went on many legs of their journey. This was leg one, so you got them fresh. You got their fresh ideas. We'll just leave them at ideas. James, you took Ashley and Avonlea and Dallas out with the Bear Clan. Did you feel that they got a good glimpse of what life is like in the North End?
Absolutely. It was a very eventful evening when we had them out. They got to see a wide range of different activities going on in the community, experience some of the good and the bad that we have in our community. But overall, I think it was a very good experience for them. I know that they left with a different opinion of our community and our way of doing things.
I like to hear that. Okay, Bernadette, you took Jamie Sue, Dawn, and Ross out to drag the red. That's a grim duty by anybody's standards. So to be taking these people and saying, guess what, we're going to go drag for bodies. And while you were out there, what was some of the feedback that you had from them?
Well, one of the first comments were, why are you only looking for Indigenous women? And, I think that comes out and it's portrayed by, media as that, but really when you're dragging the river, you can't possibly know the gender or the race of the person. So really educating people on, if you pull out a bone, you're not going to throw that back in. You're going to take that and have as much care as you can with that. They also, were asking, there's 1,200 missing and murdered women. Why are you only looking for...
Did they know that? Did you find that people did they know that figure, or were you informing them of this?
They had no idea about this figure. They didn't even know that this was a huge issue in Manitoba. And those numbers didn't seem really alarming for them, to tell you the truth. I had to actually equate it to non-Indigenous people.
Right.
So it was like 1,200 Indigenous women versus 18,000 Caucasian women. That's a high number, you know, and if that was happening, what would, you know, society, what would, you know, the police, what would be the community response to that?
Yeah.
We're a small group that are volunteers that are doing this on our own time. Some are connected to the issue, some aren't. This is about taking care of our community.
I'm surprised that they didn't have any knowledge of MMI. Maybe not necessarily the number, but the issue in itself. So any negative comments or anything on the boat when you were out with them? Or was it any questions that kind of took you off guard?
Yeah, people were asking, like, why are you doing this? Like, this is a waste of time. And we were like, well, this isn't a waste of our time. Obviously, we're out here. We care about this issue. You know, there's community members that are doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
And the reason is to give people hope, preventative, to make sure people know that we're on that river. So if anybody's going to, you know, think about putting a body in there or any evidence that, you know, is linked to a crime, that there's people on that river and that they're doing that job. And families need to know that people are doing stuff to help.
Well, and a lot of the ignorance, the not knowing statistics or that MMIW is an issue. What does it say about Canada? That we have people who are lacking this what we consider pretty basic knowledge.
Well, I always say there's people that don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know what's going on in Canada. They live in their own little bubble, and it's time to break that bubble and start to get involved in Canada and change the attitudes, because nothing's going to change in this relationship with one another until people start to shift their attitudes. It's not the responsibility of government. It's not the responsibility of police. It's the responsibility of ourselves, and we need to start you know, walking that and really treating each other with respect, love, and kindness.
Did any of you hear anything from any of these participants that you haven't heard before? Was there any new ignorance or racism?
Sadly, no.
I don't know if I heard a single new thing out of any of their mouths, and I don't know if they even were aware of that, but a lot of the things I was hearing from them were the same old negative stereotypes, and it frustrates me that there are people in Canada in 2018 that are willing to rely on those negative stereotypes of something someone told me. One thing I can't handle is that in our very initial interaction at the beginning, there was criticisms about First Nations reserves. And I was like, all right, well, I've lived in the city my whole life, so I can't speak to that. But what qualified this individual to speak about reserves was that they flew over one once.
Are you kidding?
Yes, they did. And so they knew what needed to happen on reserves. And so to me, when I hear that, someone actually say it out loud, it's something that I know is present everywhere, but it just kind of floored me that they had the audacity to kind of, you know, speak so openly and blatantly.
Yeah.
I'm glad they did, though, because if we can't address those types of things directly, how are we going to address it? I can't read your mind. I can't read all the racist people in the world's minds.
Yeah, it's good that it's good when racists are overt and articulate their racism, so you know exactly what it is. You're not left to wonder, I suppose, right? So are you hopeful that your participation, that what you showed these people, are you hopeful, or do you think it did change their mind in some way? And I'll start with each of you. Which way? How did it?
I was honored to be like one of the first faces that these folks saw, because I really wanted to give a strength-based perspective of our community. I'm pretty sure that's consistently what we were trying to do, but I know that for me, as we were kind of interacting with one another, as excited as I was about the project, I was nervous because I didn't know what was going to happen the next 27 days. I didn't know, but I do have faith in the First Nations, Matey, and Inuit communities across Canada that they'll hold on to those teachings of love, and that they'll be able to amplify all the things I was saying at the beginning about the goodness of our community. I had faith that in the next 27 days they were going to see it.
Do you think James, do you think you made your excursion made a difference, made an impact, made a change?
Absolutely. You know, I grew up in Elmwood in the 70s, so I was experiencing racism when I was 5.5 years old, and I'd become a kind of an anti-bully, and so these kinds of opportunities for me to be able to voice my perspective and counter theirs, was a fantastic opportunity.
You did that so well. I love the interaction when they were grilling about the parents and how come these people don't do this and how come they're doing that and why.
Back there, we're watching all the kids. Some don't have shoes on, and they're walking around in the grass. The same grass we're looking
Needles.
for. Yeah, paraphernalia. Where are the parents? And where?
Well, she was right there on the corner, one of them, and the dad was the other one with that little blonde girl.
Mom's right there.
Why aren't they doing better?
Isn't she saying anything?
Can't answer that.
And you kept your cool, and you just hit them with facts. And it wasn't in a condescending way. A lot of people would have taken a condescending approach to, look, what you're saying is ignorant or it's racist, and you were just really, nonplussed by it and just gave them the answers.
Just another day at the office.
Bernadette, do you think with your trip for Drag the Red, think it made an impact? And if so, what?
I hope it made an impact. I mean, if someone came on that boat and left that boat without being impacted, then I don't know what's going to impact them, because really you're fishing for bodies. Like, it's a daunting job.
Grim,
you don't know what's on the end of that, that line when you pull it up. It could be a body, it could be some kind of evidence linked to a murder. Like, it's really an emotional roller coaster being on that boat, and people are doing this out of their own, trauma or to, help impact the community. And some of the people that were on the boat I felt, their views changed. They were really shocked at the high numbers.
You could feel it there.
Yeah, absolutely. I did feel some hearts change, some attitudes change.
I hope that it's, that's a really hands-on way to get introduced to a bigger issue, right? So I hope that they took that away.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can't say that they don't know now, because they've been educated on it.
Because you went out there and you were dragging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to be joined by two of the show's producers, and they are going to tell us what happened behind the scenes. Maybe some of the stuff that you were wondering as you were watching, and can't wait to find out, so stick around.
Out on the Red River, the other group is looking for evidence of missing and murdered women with Drag the Red.
Going down the river looks beautiful, but underneath there's a whole bunch of tragedy and bad memories and graves for people who came to an end that they didn't deserve. So it's almost surreal.
They stop near an old railway bridge, gathering debris from downriver. It takes little time to snag something.
Oh. What's at the bottom of that chain is what would be interesting.
The prospect of finding something weighs heavily on Jamie Sue.
The very first time that we pulled it up, there's like a moment of high anxiety and what ifs that really popped into my mind. Holy crap!
Somebody can put a body in there and throw that in there, right? To keep it down.
Now it's Jamie Sue's turn to drag the bottom.
Part of me really wanted to find something to help someone, but at the same time, a whole bunch of fear. Like, what if this is something that's going to haunt my dreams, or it's just intense. Oh, I got something.
Got something? Here,
yeah.
Grab it. Ready? Then I'll check on the
I think
hooks,
it let
see
go.
what it is.
Yeah, I let go.
It's been a long night, and some of the travelers have been profoundly affected by what they've experienced.
Before, it was something I would see on the news, and not often enough, in my opinion, because I didn't really understand the magnitude of the situation.
Welcome back. We're joined by two new guests, and you will want to hear what they have to say, too, as we add to the conversation here. We have Vanessa Lowen from Animikisi Digital Productions, and we have Stephanie Scott from Indios Productions. Thank you for joining us. Both were producers on First Contact. My first question is going to be for Vanessa. Where on earth did you even come up with an idea for a show like this?
In 2014, someone sent me a link for this show that had been done in Australia. And they sent me the link to their trailer. And it was just instant. Like, I saw the link, and I just got this overwhelming feeling. I was just like, we're ready for this. We're ready to do this here. And I just instantly started to get in touch. The Australian producers are quite well known, and I knew of them from attending Imaginative and other things. Mm-hmm. And they're an Indigenous production company called Black Fella Films. Okay. And instantly I started the reach out process to them to say, I want to talk to you about this show. And they're a broadcaster, of course. I want to start a conversation about this show and how we could bring it to Canada.
And how long does this, so from the first time that you see this to you have the conversations necessary and then people are going, let's do it, how long did it take to convince people?
Well, I mean, they were interested right away. I mean, I sort of went to them with a unique approach because I think that in the production community in general, people would have just been like, well, let's just make our own. Let's just take this idea and copy it. Like, there's no reason not to. They're away in Australia, and we can just sort of be inspired by them. But I really felt like, as Indigenous producers, especially on an international level, we really have a responsibility to one another to learn from each other's lessons. And you can tell from seeing the trailer that this must have been a challenging experience for New Zealand. It's a lot to ask of, for Australia. It's a lot to ask of your community. Like, we want to send these 6 people with these types of ideas to hang out with you and your family in some cases and your children, and that's a big ask. So I really felt like it's not going to be good enough for me to not go into this with the best intention, and the best intention is to go to our brothers and sisters, across the world and say, teach me what you did right and what you did wrong, and help me to make sure that we can do right by our own community here.
Okay, well then tell me how you guys selected the participants. Well, first of all, how many people wanted to be part of the show, and how did you pitch it to people? Like, hey, everybody, we're doing this show. What do you say? Because you can't give away too much.
Well, we posted online, and hundreds of people applied, like hundreds, so that's not a small number. And there were questions that spoke specifically about Indigenous peoples, and you'd be surprised how readily available people are to spew that kind of hatred. And it's unfortunate, but it's happening in Canada, and I think that that's one of the things that the executive producers thought originally, like, are we going to be able to do this? Well, we have people coming forward, and we did.
So when you were saying, like, this, we're doing a show, what do you think of, and then had a series of questions that people would respond to. So then you get, what was the pool of participants that you had to choose from?
Well, we had a large number that the casting agents broke down and our producer went through. So I got a list of about 50, and then we streamlined it. So we watched hours and hours of footage of people talking and saying bad things, saying racist statements, essentially saying things about our women, our children, just generally how Indigenous people live, feel, taxes, free education, all of that, and I was surprised by that.
And so for you as an Indigenous woman, so you haven't even got this show off the ground yet. And how are you feeling? I mean, if it was me, I'm putting myself in your shoes, I feel a little, I don't know if I'd feel angry and motivated or really deflated, looking, going, how did you feel when you were going through this and hearing these things?
I'm a brown-skinned Indigenous woman living in Canada, living in Winnipeg, one of the most racist cities in this country. There's not a day that I don't face racism. I'm a professional woman. It doesn't matter what you look like. It happens to me every day. I get followed in the stores. I'm asked to pay my bill before I leave when I'm eating in a restaurant, like midway through my meal. Things like this happen to me constantly. So I'm not surprised, but definitely disappointed.
And so how did we get down to these 6? What about these 6?
Well, they all wanted to say what people say every day. I mean, you take a look at the group of them. It's alarming, but they were more than willing to share that racist, ignorant view on camera.
More than willing to share that racist, ignorant view on air in Canada for everybody to see.
For everyone to see.
I mean, it seems shocking. I mean, so after you go through all these participants or potential participants' tapes, you now begin shooting. You guys are traveling around Canada. What kind of stuff, and now just to be clear, neither of you guys were traveling with them, so you didn't get to see necessarily the behind the scenes stuff, but you got to see the behind the scenes stuff that was on film that didn't make it onto the show. So was there some shocking stuff? We want the tea.
I mean, Stephanie and I, once everyone came back, spent hours and hours combing through the footage to help to story edit the show. And, you know, the people who had been on the journey, they have a different perspective. And I'm talking about the crew, of course. Our crew was mostly non-Indigenous, of course, because for a variety of reasons, you know, you want to kind of set the stage for these people to feel comfortable discussing certain things with the people they're around. And so we felt a responsibility when everyone came back to really keep the perspective from the community and make sure that those things came through that we initially wanted them to come through when we decided to do the show.
You wanted a non-Indigenous crew specifically so they didn't feel that they were reining in some of the comments that they would have made. They feel comfortable spewing these types of things in front of white faces as opposed to brown faces. So it wasn't that you didn't want Indigenous crews working, it was that you didn't want to put them off of what their natural state of being would be, which is racist among when they feel safe to be racist.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think that we treated our hosts, like Bernadette and James and Michael, also as our crew. I mean, we went to them in advance. We had these conversations, these tough conversations, especially going to remote communities where you're in an isolated location and you're saying that you're going to send these people with these strong views. I mean, we had these conversations with people beforehand because we knew what we were asking of the community. We knew. And so our hosts that were kind enough to come on this journey with us, they became our crew and our voice and our teachers, and they really took on that responsibility, and we're indebted that you were willing to do that and come on this journey with us, because at times it was tough. And there were times when Stephanie and I were reviewing the footage and really making sure that the intention of a scene remained what it should be, because Indigenous or not, when you're on the road with people for 28 days, you spend 24 hours a day with them, you get a different perspective. You need someone to come in and say, no, remember, this is our focus. This is our goal with this scene. And as much as it seems like the non-Indigenous people kind of had the most say, and they really didn't. We really wanted to make sure that our community was empowered to have a say as well. You know, your powerful words that you left them with. And we wanted to make sure that that was always honored. That said, there were times when Steph and I were watching the footage and we would communicate with one another and, oh, today's I'm sick to my stomach today. Yeah. Oh, what have we done? Oh my goodness, like, maybe this, was too much. Oh my goodness, they said this, and the same stuff you also talk about, like, oh, they said this and it's terrible, and the things that, we hear and we're used to hearing. But it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to sort of sit alone in your office and have it on the screen going over it.
It's
for hours and hours and hours. That also has a traumatic effect, and that also causes sleepless nights, and you want to make sure that the intention that you set out to make stays true. And certainly for myself, and I know, Steph joined me and agreed to do this with us years ago too. It was a long journey, and you have these moments where you sit back and reflect and go, oh my God, like, have we done something insane? Like,
it's scary.
Scary.
And you question yourself all along, did I do something wrong? Am I giving the voice to the wrong people? But all across the country, everyone had agreed to participate, to educate, to share their lives, give them food, show the love and the richness of our communities. And that's what people don't know. And when you see these three sitting here, I'm so honored that they participated and shared that voice, because we don't get to do that all the time. We're in control of our own voice, and that's super, super important to move the dialogue of reconciliation forward.
Did you have communities that you had approached that went, no way, Jose, I don't want to be part of this? Was it a struggle to find people to take part, hosts, communities?
I don't think anybody said flat out no, but I think there was
a couple apprehension. There was apprehension. There was one that turned us down because they weren't quite sure what was going to happen once we got into the community. But it was very minimal. Everyone was open and willing and ready to share and take on that challenge.
So to the producers, in addition to critical acclaim, of course, what else do you want the show to accomplish?
I hope that when my daughters and my grandsons are able to walk in the city and feel safe, feel empowered, get educated, work, see our people everywhere, I think that's what I hope. And this isn't going to change the world. It's just a beginning, and it's only a start.
Vanessa?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to echo that. That's obviously, we are in a time now. I will say that the 4 years since I first got sent that link to that Australian trailer to now has been a very interesting time. The recommendations came out from the TRC last year when we were in production, or 2 years ago, the Tina Fontaine decision came down at the same time as the Colton Bushy. You know, those are times that we feel so much sorrow and so defeated, and to know during these things that are happening, and then the recommendations come and people say, oh, the list is so long, what can I do? And then you sort of feel, you know, we knew the whole time we were working on this show, and it really harkened back to that initial sense that I had where I was like, we are ready, like there's something coming and it's going to be, and so I think that all we can hope for is that this is just another positive thing to add to the long list of things that we can do.
The timing of it is, like you said, it is incredible from when you were filming and then the things that have happened after.
Yeah, and knowing the whole time we had this in our back pocket to make this contribution and to...
How do you stay quiet like that? I mean, I'm just thinking of these things coming out and then seeing all the racist back and forth with the Tina verdict and the Gerald Stanley verdict. And you've got this coming out where it's like, oh, we're going to be having this conversation. How do you just sit quietly?
You can sit quietly, but we were thinking, you know, like, are we waiting? Is the process delayed? But you know what? Time and time again, something racist happens, and
yeah,
we're not surprised. You know, it's not going to end. So, you know, hopefully this dialogue starts to happen and initiate some change.
Yeah. Okay, this feels like a good time to take another break. We'll be hearing more from what happened behind the scenes and the feedback, the buzz, everything else. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Later in the day, the men traveled to the local school, while the women visit the health center.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Ashley.
I'm Raya.
Nice to meet you.
Mariah Beardy is the health director.
So this is the clinical side here. We only have 2 nurses each day. There is no ambulance. We only have 1 medical van, which is not in very good shape.
They also lack a resident doctor. For Avonlea, a mother of 2, the situation is unthinkable.
I think this health center is similar to the one I grew up near. The difference being the doctors are in the town, so it's easier to be treated, but I can't fathom not having a doctor here right away.
I had a very scary situation where I almost lost my youngest. She came down very fast with pneumonia, and there was no nurse. So I called the nearest town. I said, what do I do? Like, my daughter's
Barely
turning
breathing,
blue.
yeah.
And she told me, go do what you can to go bust into the nursing station, like your daughter's lacking oxygen. We busted into the health center, and we got the oxygen in her. And meanwhile, I was talking to a nurse on speakerphone who was instructing me what to do. There was a float plane there. Somebody went to go pick up that nurse, and she came flying in here, and my daughter was medevaced.
So that's scary. That was a serious situation.
It's very serious.
Mariah's story hits close to home with Avonlea.
My son was 2 weeks old, and he had meningitis, bacterial meningitis. He's okay now, but if it was here, he would have died. Why stay here if a lot of people need medical treatment? Why is the community still here and not closer to civilization?
So First Contact has, you would say, set the internet on fire. And the feedback's been largely positive, but of course there's always people who will take to social media with their racist rants. Let's take a look at some of the things that we've been seeing online. Late August. Summer had begun to cool down. When First Contact launched the series trailer on their Facebook page, things heated back up.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to my community so that you can see with your own eyes, experience with your own bodies, and feel with your own hearts what this community is really about.
This could be not so bad, it could be good, or it could be like, holy, what did I just sign up for?
I have not been to a reservation ever.
You're going to stick out like sore thumbs.
It's our way of life, and just try and maintain it as best we can.
If I was to stay at one of those homes, I would find a place to go and take a shower first thing in the morning.
Was Canada ready for such a show? It would appear very much so. In 3 weeks, the trailer topped 2.1 million views. It got 13,000 likes and 53,000 shares. The buzz was everywhere. How would these 6 people fare on this 28-day journey? And what kind of conflict would they find themselves in with these attitudes? The internet showed people couldn't wait to find out. First Contact quickly became the second Google search result behind only Star Trek's First Contact, and the show was a hot topic on many Reddit threads across Turtle Island. While most of the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, there was some nastiness that prompted First Canada to post this disclaimer on their Facebook wall. Please note that posts containing profanities, threatening comments, and/or blatantly hateful language will be deleted from the page. The reaction to that post buoyed producers and echoed what most people felt, that this series is indeed part of an ongoing dialogue and action that's part of reconciliation. One commented, "The fact that you have to post this is truly heartbreaking. Congratulations on your show and the important purpose it serves. Can't wait to tune in." Another said, "Canada has a long way to go yet. I'm disappointed that you had to post this, but sadly not at all surprised. I'm looking forward to this series." I want to just take a moment to, in case you're just joining us, to reintroduce you to the guests that I have here with me today from First Contact. We have host Michael Champagne. We have James Fable of the Bear Clan. We have Bernadette Smith, who took them on the Drag the Red tour. We have Vanessa Lowen from Animakisi, and we have Stephanie Scott from Indios. These are the two of the producers for InFocus, I was going to say. This is InFocus from First Contact. Okay, so I want to talk to you. What have you, the buzz that's been generated? It's negative, it's positive. What's your takeaway?
I think that it's mostly positive from the online. The Facebook page has been mostly positive. I think it's been overwhelming. I think getting back to what we were talking about before, about us feeling unsure sometimes and a little bit scared about what we may have done, as the comments started to come in and those views started to happen, I think we felt like we were completely, we had done the right thing, in fact, and that it was engaging Canada in a way that was meaningful.
The dialogue's a first step, and there will always be the racist comments that continuing, but how do we address those? How do we educate? How do we respond to those questions? And sometimes wrong views. I mean, it's being moderated, so we're hopeful that people are actually paying attention, and there will always be trolls no matter what on social media, and just trying to trigger and trying to get that, racist dialogue happening. But we're trying hard, and we're being successful at it.
Yeah. Just the volume, though. I mean, I remember, but I guess it would have been about a month ago when the trailer first came out, and that just went bananas on social media. What was it? It was well over 1 million views in under a week, just for the trailer.
In 4 days.
In 4 days.
Yeah. On Saturday, we posted it on a Wednesday, and by the Saturday, we had over 1 million views.
Okay, so I want to know what was going on in your office as you guys are watching.
Well, it was Saturday, so we were all at home texting each other, watching it get closer to 1 million, and just, that's those moments where you feel like that sickness that we maybe had in our stomach is gone. Like you just realize we're reaching people, and that's all we ever wanted to do, and we're doing it. And it's pretty unprecedented from what we're hearing for a show, an original Canadian show like this with no existing audience, to just be taking off like this. And that tells us that we were ready. This country was ready for this discussion.
When people saw, go ahead.
Oh, I just had anticipated maybe 100,000 will share that trailer. We're not sure how that's going to translate into views, but that made people, made us know that people were paying attention. It went to 100, it went to 200, it went to 300,000. We hit 500,000. We're approaching 2 million. And then I was driving to go pick up lunch, and I started crying because I thought, this is going to make a difference. I don't know how well it's going to do, but I really believe that this dialogue is starting to happen, and it's being shared. That's a large number across this country, and I'm super proud of, Vanessa, Des, all of the producers on there, Jeff, who was in the field and directing.
Yeah. And the people
and Jocelyn. Jocelyn was on the ground and, did a lot of work, another one of our producers, but I mean, everybody worked extremely hard. Indigenous and non-Indigenous came together to make this show happen, and especially our community.
So, there's a lot of people talking. There is the conversation now. I'm sure you've all heard. You guys your people see you on the show, and they're like, "Hey, wanted to talk to you about, I'm sure, your experience on it." Do you get any people saying, "Why the hell would you want to be involved with people like this?" Michael?
I think I've primarily been getting positive and encouraging feedback from people about how this is a much-needed conversation. But I also think there is something really important that we all need to address here if we're talking about the buzz and the comments and the conversation that we are having. And that's the dialogue right now around those racists. We need to stop dehumanizing these people, because racism is dehumanizing to us. And if we want to be better, we can't behave in that same way. And so
that's a good point.
And so I think it's important for us in this conversation to say these people, they have ideas, they have experiences, but the best way to respond to ignorance is with information. And that's what this show has accomplished. And I think that it's really important for us as we have this conversation, even with people who hold those perspectives and ideas that we disagree with or are very hurtful, to find the humanity in them and speak to their humanness and explain that we're not doing this to hurt anyone, we're not trying to shame people, we're doing this because First Nations, Matey, and Inuit people in this country deserve the same things that everybody deserves. Love, respect, safety, housing, job, education. We're not asking for special treatment, we're asking for a good life.
Well, a lot of these people were saying, you think you do deserve special treatment, right? And saying essentially to your face the entire time, right? How?
I have to remember that there were even times in my life where I held incorrect views about people around me, Indigenous or non-Indigenous. And in those moments, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so as we are all educating people, we can't get mad at people for not knowing stuff they've never been taught.
Well, but I would argue that they have been taught this. What they have been taught has led them to this, And so a lot of these people, the participants have said, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I didn't know. But you've been taught a lot of things that have led you up to where you are. So who can we be mad at for that?
And
where do we start with our anger?
Yeah, and we heard that. That's been passed down from generations.
It's in the schools.
Be afraid to go to that reserve.
That's
Be afraid to play with Indigenous, Aboriginal people. And as an educator, I heard that, time and time again from kids. And we can educate kids all we want, but those kids are still going home to their parents. And this show is going to reach the parents, and I think that's where the conversation needs to happen, is we need to start educating the parents at home so that these stereotypical, conversations that they're having with their own children change, so that the next generations after that aren't having these same conversations about, stay away from that reserve, stay away from those Indigenous people. They're drunks, they're alcoholics, they live off the system, they're looking for a free ride. When, those things are untrue. And, people are going to see through this show that people are working hard. People just want a good life. They want the same opportunity as every other Canadian has. And we're talking about reconciliation. This is a step towards reconciliation.
I like that. I do like that. But back to the education part of this, after the episode that we've just seen, one of the participants, you've been educated on the effects of residential schools. So I didn't know can't be your thing anymore. You've now heard these stories, and this participant was still like, yeah, I don't think that they were all bad. They were well-intentioned. The stories out of there were exaggerated. What do you do? That was some education, and...
Well, I really hope that participant got to sit down with some of the survivors from residential school, because they certainly have a different take. Being a second generation, my mom went to residential school and seeing the effects of that. And the sexual abuse that went on. Like, who in their right mind would send a little child somewhere to go and get, sexually abused, raped, impregnated their child, murdered in places like that? And we're talking about assimilation. I heard on one of the episodes there, they just need to assimilate into the Canadian, context. But, you know, they haven't assimilated into the Indigenous ways of knowing, being, and living. Like when you look at that village of those children, you see someone coming in from the outside and they're judging, they're going, why is that kid not wearing shoes?
Yeah.
Why is the parent not there? That's our way of life. For us, that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have parents, they're just not right beside their child. Their parent may be, you know, 100 feet away.
Well, as James had pointed out, and that wasn't a good enough answer. I think at first they were like, there's no parents here at all. And you're like, I saw the mom right there. I saw the dad right there. And then it's like, well, but why aren't they closer? I mean, who is scrutinized like that? I'm a Matey woman, and I'm a white passing woman. Nobody comes and asks me or judges me like she's too far away from her kid. When I'm at the playground, I'm sitting on my phone on the bench. I don't get that. These people thought it was, you know, their right to make that judgment. And what are you thinking at that time?
Arm's reach is good for the pool, but in the community, there's a lot more field to play in.
So the participants are on tomorrow. I'll ask the producers. What can we expect from them? You know, by the time they're here with us tomorrow, they'll have seen all of the episodes. What can we expect? What do you think?
I think you can expect a little hope. You're not going to change everyone's mind, but there is hope, and I really encourage you to watch right through to episode 3 because it gives you a whole perspective on 1, 2, and 3 and what the outcome can be when you start that dialogue and have people sharing life experience from residential school right through to being, you know, an educated person in the society today.
Vanessa?
Yeah,
what can we, I mean, let's break them down into participant to participant then, right? So, you know, what are we going to get? Avonlea, she's going to come in here and she's going to tell people, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Like, is there going to be a lot of that, do we think? Or
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's totally fair. I think that on the lines of what Stephanie said, I think while we know that we can't change everyone, I think that there is a great payoff if you hang in there with these folks. And I think I have to assume that once a change like that takes place in someone's life, that they have no choice but to carry it forward. So I think of those who, you know, left the experience with a perspective changed, or they more than likely have carried it forward. I mean, once you know, as Michael said, people don't know what they don't know. And we all are guilty of that sometimes.
Of course.
I think that once you know what you didn't know, you have a responsibility, if you're any kind of person with a beating heart in your chest, to carry that forward. So in terms of breaking them down as individuals, I wouldn't venture to do that. They will be here tomorrow to speak for themselves and what their experience was.
I would think that there would be some embarrassment, perhaps. Like, putting myself in their shoes,
perhaps.
I would think that there would be, you know, you'd come in with a little humility and shame. You hope, if your eyes have been open. And then I'm sure that there will be some people who maybe still see things this way.
I think that the hope is Avonlea is also a mother.
Yeah.
So she's been across this country. She can share those stories with her children so that hopefully the next time when they're old enough that they can address that racism and make that change as well. So that doesn't just lie with her, but it's a continuation.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for sharing this with our viewers, with First Contact. Well, I get some good news to deliver. There is going to be another season of First Contact, and I know that because it's currently in production. I'm going to have the opportunity to chat with the director when he comes back into town. And make sure you tune in tomorrow to the finale. That's on at 7 Eastern time. And right after that, we are going to be here with all of the participants. You are not going to want to miss that. We'll see if their attitudes changed, right? I'm Melissa Ridgen. This has been an APTN special where we put First Contact in focus. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
I got nominated for enhancing our vibrant community for Edmonton.
But his views on First Nations people aren't pretty.
You ever have the nicest looking Indian reserve in Canada? They ever had that contest? Oh my God, they'd be fighting for last place. They don't fix windows. If they have a car, it breaks down, it stays in the yard. Take 5 minutes of your life and get out of bed before noon and tidy up your spot.
I came here with ignorant views, and I'm open and honest about it. Yeah, I was ignorant towards stuff, but I'm being honest with all of these guys, being like, you know what? I was wrong. And then you have two people who, in my mind, just don't give a
Over the last couple of days, there seems to have been kind of a rift between us, and we'll see which way it goes. But I still believe the same thing as I believed 20 days ago, and some of my opinions might not change.
Things are only going to get tougher on the final leg of their journey.
We're really looking at the long-term effects of a genocide.
Throw those gloves on. We need your help.
How I came to be here, I killed somebody.
I don't feel that I'm a racist person.
I feel like he's the face of that, older generation where it's racist.